What is up, everybody? It is Og here, back with another video, and in today's video, we're taking a look at how AOE farms will be possible in TBC and what changes that we can expect. This is a question I get asked constantly in the stream, and so I want to be able to show you guys exactly my thoughts, what changes are going to happen potentially, and how they might impact the farms. Before we get into that though, if you guys are enjoying the videos, please hit that sub button and hit the bell icon next to it so you guys know when all these videos go live. And please like and comment down below for the video as well. It really helps out. All right, let's jump into it. So by now, you probably heard that there might be some changes coming to AOE farms. AOE farms are an integral part of Classic, whether it's gold farming or boosting. A ton of people are doing AOE farms. And the reason is because you can hit an infinite number of mobs and do the same amount of damage. This allows mages to do 500 mob Mara pools and kill 500 mobs at once because they're doing the same amount of damage to all those mobs. So as long as they can properly control them, they're able to kill all them. That might not be true moving forward in TBC though. The reason is patch 2.2. Shout out to WoW Wiki for bringing the patch notes and having them so we can check them out. You know, they had amazing features such as the voice chat, for example, which just revolutionized the game. But realistically, there were some actually really important changes that came with that patch. But patch 2.2 isn't the original TBC, so why does this matter? Well, Classic was not released with the original 1.0 either as a new rollout. It was released with the preferred version of Classic, basically, with everything fixed, just everything gated then. So MC was gated, BWL was gated, PvP was gated, etc. And so we can probably expect that something similar is going to happen in TBC, where they have the ready state of TBC, the future version with all the updates that they wanted, released just with everything gated. And so if they go to a patch that is past or at 2.2, that's the important number, we're going to see these changes. Well, what are these changes? Well, specific abilities got hit with an AOE cap. So you can see here, for example, for Druids, Hurricane is now affected by AOE damage caps. You can scroll through all these different classes and see which abilities are affected by AOE caps. I'll have it linked down below so you guys can just check it out. But there's a few that I want to point out specifically for AOE farming. First is Blizzard. Blizzard is affected by area damage caps. Obviously, this is going to be the biggest change. Blizzard is the #1 way to farm mobs right now because you can just Blizzard mobs from a far distance, slow them immensely, and just do a ton of damage. However, one spell that isn't here is Flamestrike. So there may be a possibility to facilitate using Flamestrike in lieu of Blizzard, and Flamestrike may be able to do the maximum damage, and you may be able to take out mobs like this. And this is one thing we'll be testing later in the video. But I also want to point out Paladins. Consecration will now properly hit large creatures, but it says nothing about the area of effect cap, right? So if Consecration is good to go, which is what we expect, then Paladins will be able to take on a lot of mobs at once. And this is one reason why prop Paladins are becoming so good at AOE farming in TBC, is because their defensive abilities just skyrocket with Blessing of Sanctuary and everything like that, and specific items that we'll get into in another video that allow them to basically take on a bunch of mobs and have really low chance of dying, like a really low chance. In addition though, Consecrate will still do a ton of damage, and so they'll be able to mow through mobs, and they might be the preferred potentially boosting tunes, or at least AOE farming tunes. So what does the actual damage cap look like? How does it work? Well, fortunately, it still lets you hit all the mobs. And so in the future, there's actually a mob count cap, which means that, let's say you're at 100 mobs, it'll only actually hit 10 mobs. But for TBC, the way that it works is it just splits up the damage. So for example, if we have an AOE spell with a stated damage cap of 200, unstated of 2000, that means that the damage that each tick will do will be 200, but it caps at 10 times that, so 2000. So here, for example, if we hit 10 mobs, it's 2000, but 11 mobs is still 2000 damage, and so it decreases from 200 to 181 damage each. So you can just think if we have 500 mobs, well then we're decreasing the damage we do by 50 times because we have 50 times the cap. Currently our Blizzards tick for about 165 to 170 range, which means we'd be doing about 3 damage per tick with Blizzard. Obviously, this will be shattering the Mara 500 pool with the current kind of status for it. But there's some farms that might still work. And so here we could see specific damage counts. And right now it looks like with 363 bonus spell damage and with Blizzard rank 6, this is TBC numbers, we can expect about 236 damage per hit. And so if we can expect 236 damage per hit on 10 mobs, then we can kind of factor in, okay, with SM, we're killing about 80 mobs per go. With ZG, we're killing about 45 to 50 mobs. With ZF, we're killing about 40 mobs. And so we can start to kind of calculate, will we be able to do these farms and simulate what it might be like with the actual damage? So I'll have these links down below, but now let's jump into some actual farms and start theory crafting how we might still be able to do the farms in TBC and what they might look like. So I figured a good first step would be to look at this from a math standpoint, right? And so we can simply calculate how many blizzards we're going to need to kill any of these instances, any of our normal farms that we do. For example, if we take a mob count of 80 with SM, which is typical mob count for the Cath with the new strategy that we have right now, then we're looking at blizzard equivalent damage of 30. And so basically the way that we do that is we take the 236 from the WoW wiki for the blizzard damage, we divide it by, or multiply it by 10 divided by 80. So basically 1/8 because we have 80 mobs. And so the 10 damage, the damage of 10 mobs is going to be split amongst 80. We can get about 30 damage per mob. This is purely just per tick. Then if we have mob health of about 4,100, we can see that's going to take about 139 blizzard ticks to kill or 17 blizzards, which honestly isn't too crazy. 17 blizzards definitely does sound like a lot, and it definitely is a lot. But in theory, we could find some ways to work around that and definitely, still be able to pull that off. For Mara 200, though, when we're looking at this, we're looking at 200 mob count, 12 damage, and 58 blizzards to kill, and that's probably unrealistic. In theory, we could pull it off if we just have the permanent poison sprites, hitting us from behind and constantly resisting, constantly getting mana back. We could eventually pull it off, but it's probably not going to be very efficient. We can, however, start to look at some of these strategies a little bit differently. Mara, unfortunately, it's kind of like all or nothing kind of thing, right? Because the run itself takes 12 minutes. But SM, we're doing a one pull with this strategy. What if we were to change this up a little bit and just focus on, just say, 1/3 of the mobs? Well, then we're looking at 7 blizzards to kill the mobs, and we can take them out real easily. And we'd be able to burn through these mobs. And it'd basically be the equivalent of doing, maybe ZG, but in SM. And so it's 100% still possible to do 30 mob counts. And then what we could do is we could do the 30 mob counts on the first floor, 30 mob count on the second floor, and then do the cathedral, or do 1 and 2 combined and then do the cathedral. The nice thing about the cathedral is that we're using Flamestrike and Cone of Cold, which were not on those lists for AOE caps, which means that potentially they could still do full damage and we could take out SM. ZF, similarly, we could open up half of ZF. ZG, we could do half of the mobs. And so that's a quick way to kind of tool around with some changes that we could potentially make to our farms to be able to take out these farms. Obviously, it might not be as efficient as it is right now at level 60, just burning through the mobs, in a matter of minutes like we're doing right now. But it still provides the opportunity to do some of these AOE farms in the future for mages. Paladins, we're burning through the mobs with Consecrate at this point. So Blizzard looks like it's still going to be possible to add in a couple of tricky elements. But what if we completely change our strategy around? What if we move away from Blizzard and move to Flamestrike? So this is kind of radical, crazy idea. Flamestrike has a much closer minimum range that you have to be, basically. So you have to be a lot closer to the mobs for it to go off. But you can see here, it might have potential. And the idea here is basically that when we cast Blizzard, we are getting 5 seconds of slow, where we have 5 seconds where we can get off a Flamestrike, get into our next position, get another Blizzard going. They're going to get out of our Blizzard slow, but hopefully stay stacked up enough. Off the bat, when we got this started, I only did 1 run, and this was the 1 run to test it. It was very sloppy. Now, the issues were that these poison sprites right here were basically just drilling into me, obliterating my chance to keep the Blizzard going, to keep them slowed, and to keep Flame Strikes going off. And so I ultimately had to do another loop. But what I learned was you really need to focus on the positioning of the sprites, and there's a good way to jump back and forth to focus on where to do the blizzards and where to do the flame strikes, and that's what you're going to see once we get back there. If we have a combination though of nature protection potions and potentially even lips, if we want to run in lip just to get a Nova to get a good flame strike off, maybe even a cone of cold with a cold snap Nova combo, basically, so we could just drill down the sprites real quick and then go from there. This is very possible. This is very possible to be able to do. It won't work with the 500 pool because you won't be able to get close enough to the barbed lashers to get damage on them with Flame Strike without, you know, suffering the penalties of getting stunned. And so that's not going to work. But with the 200 pool and the Hydra pool with the 200 pool, so the 360 pool, this is 100% possible. And that's what you're about to see once we get back up to the top. There's obviously going to have to be some tooling, but if Flame Strike isn't included in the damage caps, I don't see any reason why Mara will not be possible to do in TBC, which is fantastic news. It's fantastic news because obviously it's just a really fun farm to do, but additionally it's going to be a great way to level up Dune still. There's going to be, I believe, a little bit of a nerf as far as boosting XP that we get in the future, but hopefully we could still get some really good XP out of here. Obviously, it is faster than questing by a mile right now, so it could be really good. But here's how I kind of retooled how I was doing it, and you're going to notice it's starting to get a lot more comfortable. Obviously, poison sprites are down too, which definitely helps, but I started focusing on this center kind of pillar right here to be the place where I focus my flame strikes. And so here I go for another flame strike, and unfortunately, you know, the shields just go down, so I'm not able to get it off. But that allows the corruptors to get back in with the rest of the mobs. And so now when I jump back up, all the mobs are slowed. The very front mob is slowed, and I have some time to get off my flame strike. You can see them getting pretty close to hitting me here, and so obviously it was a close call. But now they're grouped up. Now I got my blizzards. Now I jump back up right at the end of a tick, go for another flame strike, and the flame strike is actually starting to go off right as they come out of the slows, which means when I turn back around, get them back into another blizzard, jump up, flame strike. You can see the viability of this. It's going to take some practice to get used to it, but this is 100% possible. Things you will need though, obviously the Blade of Eternal Darkness, and eventually the Blade of Eternal Darkness is nerfed so that it can only proc once, I think every second on one mob or something like that. There's some nerf that comes later. I tried to find it. I know that we talked about it in the past, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I'm not sure which patch it comes out on. I don't know if it's WoW. I don't know if it's during TBC. So this could kind of thwart the plans because as you can see, a lot of the mana that we're getting back is from the Blade of Eternal Darkness, especially, you know, once the poison sprites die, we're not going to be getting fed back mana, and Flame Strike does cost a lot of mana to get off, but this is a potential strategy for how we can work around some of the damage caps. Another benefit too is that if you're doing a farm with non-elites and elites such as ZF, Mara, ZG, even if it's like 5 to 6 elites, that's less, or 5 to 6 regular mobs, that's less mobs in the total count. So once those mobs are down, dead heroes for example, or these boars, these sprites, etc., you're only going to have so many elites. For here, for example, we have around 80 elites, which drops it right down to like the SM equivalent. So it might even just be possible to do the normal Blizzard strategy, just taking a little bit to get down the sprites and everything, but once the sprites and boars are down, doing more damage to the main mobs as well. So I would say that AoE farming is still alive. It's going to take some, you know, retooling a little bit. We're going to have to learn some new strategies, but I don't see any reason why we aren't going to be able to pull off a lot of AoE farms for mages. And obviously paladins are going to be kings of being able to do a ton of AoE farms, especially some of the instances up in the Eastern Plaguelands. All right, everyone, that wraps up today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe and leave a like and a comment below to let me know so. And if you guys have any other ideas for any other videos, please let me know in the comments below. Also, check out the description for the Twitch where I do all this live, and also for my Twitter and Discord where you guys can be notified of any future updates and when I'm going to go live on stream. So I'll see you guys in the next video.